Hello, and welcome back to the Live for Today, Plan for Tomorrow podcast with your host, Gabe Bodner of the Bodner team at OneTrust Home Loans. Well, I'm super excited today. We've got a special guest with us, Kelly Dunkin, who's the president and CEO of Colorado Gives Foundation. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Gabe. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. I know Colorado Gives Day is coming up not too far from now. And with that coming down the pike, I really, it's just great to have you here to learn for myself as well as our listeners to learn more about what Colorado Gives Foundation is and what you do and how that ties into Colorado Gives Day. We've obviously got listeners all over the country, and I'm sure that people can give on Colorado Gives Day even outside of Colorado. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so with that being said, I know you've been the CEO and president for over 6.5 years now at Colorado Gives Foundation, but give us a quick overview of who you are and where you come from.
Great. I would love to. So, Colorado Gives Foundation has a mission to connect people, ideas, and nonprofits to make good happen. And so, what that means is we work both statewide and in Jefferson County, Colorado. And statewide, our work is to build capacity of nonprofits and donors. And we do that by offering giving accounts, which are referred to as donor advised funds. We also steward about 160 nonprofit endowments. So, a nonprofit who has enough money to invest in their long-term sustainability, but may not have the staff or board expertise or time to invest those assets. They can open the endowment with us, we'll invest on their behalf. And then we also are the founders and continue to run an online giving website, coloradogives.org, that we leverage every year for a giving day, Colorado Gives Day. I'm sure we'll get to that, but just in case, it's December 9th this year. And that's what we do statewide. And what we do in Jefferson County is, if I boil it down to its simplest form, we're a Jefferson County grant maker. So our vision is that all of Jeffco is thriving, and we do about $7 to $10 million in grants every year to support nonprofits who are aligned with that vision of a thriving Jeffco.
That's awesome. You've answered half my questions already, Kelly. So you've taken away half my thunder, but
Well,
that's
we
okay.
can go deeper on anything. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. That's awesome. So, um, let's kind of back up a little bit, but tell us how Colorado Gives Foundation ha got started, right? How it
Yeah.
evolved over time and where it really came from.
Yeah. So I think this is an interesting story. I didn't fully understand it until I started working here. So I like to say we are a young community foundation with a long history. So we're actually 50 years old. And we started as the Lutheran Medical Center Foundation. So we were essentially a hospital foundation where, if you had grateful patients or individuals who wanted to support the hospital, we would help take those gifts in and make sure they went to the place that the donor had intended them to go. Over the years, we spun out to be a standalone community foundation who was serving the metro area. And we had been in a relationship with another nonprofit entity, the Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth, and we had a co-governance of what at the time was the Exempla Health System. And we ended up transferring our governance rights to the Sisters of Charity of Leavenworth. And in return, they endowed us with about $250 million that has grown over the years. So when I say that we work statewide, that's really helping donors and nonprofits. And then I said we worked in Jeffco and we made grants. The grants we make in Jeffco come from that unrestricted endowment. And we
Mm.
chose to focus on Jeffco because Lutheran serves Jeffco. And so essentially, the money that we were entrusted with came from the Jefferson County community.
Mm. Awesome. That's a great
Yeah,
story. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So,
sure.
why Jeffco, by the way? I mean, you mentioned obviously the roots, but what's so special about Jefferson County compared to other counties per se?
Yeah.
If there is such a thing.
Yeah, so I think anyone who lives in a county in Colorado can tell you what's special about that
Sure.
county. And so the reason we focus on Jeffco is because of our roots with the Lutheran Medical Center Foundation.
Sure.
But what we believe is special about Jeffco is it's a big enough county that it really has a good mass. There's about 600,000 people who live in Jefferson County, but it's small enough that a community foundation of our size can really make a difference. So that focus gives us an opportunity to really work with the community and make a difference on the issues that the community cares about. So that's one reason. We also, I've spent the summer talking to about 65 individuals in Jefferson County, just interviewing them. And one of the questions I asked is, what do you love about Jeffco? And almost to a person, they said the same thing. I get the best of both worlds. And what they meant by that is I'm really close to an urban center and all that an urban center has to offer, but I'm 15 minutes from incredible open space and the mountains. I
Yeah.
also am really close to this urban center, but I feel like I live in a small town. So we think that that's what makes Jeffco special.
I love it. I
Yeah.
I personally am in Boulder County, but what you said right there resonates with me because
Does
I
it?
feel, yeah, and Boulder County I think is very similar in what you described, right? I have the ability, my wife and I have the ability to get to Denver and get to a big city within 25 minutes for all intents and purposes. We've got a great downtown, but yet the open space, right? And
Yeah.
being able to have that lifestyle, if you will, of both best of both worlds. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
It resonates with me. So I get it.
And I
Wonderful.
think what comes down, it's always about the people, right? So
Mhm.
feeling like you live in a beautiful place is only made more beautiful by the community connections and the people that know you as a neighbor in that place. So we think it's really the people that make Jefferson County so incredibly special.
Awesome. Now, with your background and the roots, do you have a key focus area in medical or hospital space or education, or do you serve the entire Jefferson County, regardless of the mission of the nonprofit?
That is a great question. So I would say our statewide work serves any nonprofit, regardless of their mission. So any nonprofit can use coloradogives.org for free online fundraising. As long as they're in good standing with the Secretary of State, serve Colorado, and have their public charity designation from the IRS, they could use the site.
Okay.
Endowments, any nonprofit who wants to open an endowment with us, we will manage that endowment on their behalf. But our grant making that's focused on Jeffco, the vision is that all of Jeffco is thriving. And we define that this way. One, it is a place of collective well-being where our friends and neighbors can meet their needs around safe, nutritious, affordable food and safe and affordable housing. It's also a place where people can achieve economic freedom so that they have the ability to make the choices that they feel are best for themselves and their loved ones. So it's making sure we have quality early care and education because we know that taking care of our youngest pays dividends later in life. And it's also about workforce development for anyone about to enter the workforce who's been in the workforce and wants to make a change or grow their skills. And it's also a place of vibrant communities where people have equitable access to health. And we define health pretty holistically. So it's physical health, it's dental health, it's behavioral health, it's even spiritual health. And
Mm.
it's also a place where people have access to both the physical and the social infrastructure that make it easy to connect to the people and the community that they call home. So that's what we focus on in JEPCO.
Wow, that's amazing. You said a lot there, by the way, and I heard a
I
couple
did.
things that stood out to me when you talk about affordable, housing,
Yep.
affordable food, right? We're kind of going off track a little bit here, but are those in your mind still attainable in today's day and age in Jefferson County?
I think food security is a problem for people living on lower incomes. And what we're seeing is it's also becoming a problem for people who have jobs. So I think a lot of times people assume people who have to use a food pantry or rely on a food bank may not have jobs. And we're finding more and more they do, but their jobs are just not paying a sufficient wage to meet the cost of living. So I do think it's a challenge for many families. I'm not going to lie and say everybody has access to the food they need. It continues to be a challenge. And that's why we support those providers in Jefferson County who are helping people get the food that they need for themselves, for their children, for older adults, so they can lead healthy lives. And when it comes to housing, we believe in listening to the community. And when we decided to think about where would we focus in Jefferson County, what were the biggest needs, we couldn't go anywhere without hearing about how the rising cost of housing was really pricing a lot of people out of the market, and that it was becoming a huge problem for people in Jefferson County. So we started to look and we said, well, even a foundation with assets of our size, we're just a drop in the bucket when you look at meeting the needs of housing for all Jeffco residents. So we decided to get really focused. Where could we make a difference? And as we looked around, we realized it was really a supply issue. In 2008, we had a recession. It didn't just happen in Jeffco, it happened across the nation, but we really cut back on the supply of housing. And so just kind of basic economics, when you have limited supply and increasing demand, prices go up. So we said, okay, we'll look at supply. How can we help increase the supply of housing that's affordable to individuals and families living in Jeffco? And then we said, well, market rate housing, developers will build market rate housing because they can make money off it, and they're in that business. And then there's something called low-income housing tax credits. And if a developer can get a low-income housing tax credit, they can also build low-income housing to meet the needs of people who are living on pretty low incomes. But there was this missing middle, and it's really what we think of as middle-income families. So I'm going to use like 60 to 120% area median income. To put that in real numbers, it's about 55,000 to maybe 105,000, depending on family size.
Sure.
And so people in that income couldn't afford market rate. They couldn't qualify for subsidies for low income housing. So we said, what if we took $15 million from our endowment and we seeded a fund, and we said to developers, we will bring down the cost of building or preserving housing that's affordable for missing middle income households. And so we've been making we've been making low interest loans. So at about loans, I would say average of 3%, which is really, really low in today's environment, or
Sure.
even equity investments in projects that will either increase or preserve. We think preservation is just as important, the supply of housing that's affordable for those families. So that was a very long answer to your question, but the answer is housing continues to be a struggle, but we're working on it with great partners. Food also continues to be a struggle for many people, and we're also working on that with some terrific partners.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love that. And yes, I would agree 100%, right? There's the low income housing that many communities talk about and or require developers to pay into
Mhm.
subsidies or get taxed for, but the moderate income, middle income, as you said, um, it's a big challenge.
Yes, it
Absolutely.
really
And
is.
so I see that all the time. And with that, I guess one other question for you, kind of along those lines, is what would you say for local businesses that might be involved in either real estate or mortgage lending or building? How can they help? How can they help both Colorado Gives Foundation and or to support the endowment that you're referring to provide additional housing?
Yeah. Oh, I can think of a lot of ways. So let's just start with housing. So I think if a developer is looking to build a project in Jeffco that aligns with the parameters I just laid out. So if they're
Sure.
looking to meet the needs of middle income housing, come talk to us. We'd love the opportunity to see if we could potentially invest in your project and bring down the cost so we can have more units that are available to families and households living on middle incomes. So that's
Okay.
one thing.
Great.
Two, if someone wants to invest, we take donations into our Bring It Home fund, and you can donate to the fund, and then we will then place that money into a loan that we're making or into an equity investment for a project that will increase the supply of housing. If you're looking to give to a nonprofit, you can reach out to us and we can connect you with Foothills Regional Housing in our area that does a lot of low income housing. If you're in Lakewood, there's West Metro Housing. Habitat for Humanity does great work throughout the state and are doing some great work in Jefferson County as well. We've got Blue Spruce Habitat up in Evergreen. We're also working with other partners like Mercy Housing that provides low income housing. So those are a couple of ways you can get involved. There's also a group called the Jeffco Community Network. And the Jeffco Community Network is individuals who live in Jefferson County who are interested in the issue of housing. And they get involved when there are city council hearings or when there are planning commission hearings, and they're looking at approving or not approving a project that has to do with housing. So if you're interested, we can get you in touch with that group if you want to get involved.
Wow, that's amazing. Such incredible source of information, I will say. But it also sounds like you guys have done a great job. You personally, at least, have done a great job of compiling additional resources within the county that are available, which is incredible. So, with that, why would you say giving on Colorado Gives Day is more impactful? And maybe it's not more impactful, but if it is more impactful than giving on any other day of the year, per se.
Yeah, I hate to say giving on one day is more impactful than another day because nonprofits need our support
Oh,
365
uh,
days of the year.
fair
So
enough.
giving
Yeah,
any day is a great day to give. But why you might want to consider giving on Colorado Gives Day. And we call it Colorado Gives Day because the actual day is December 9th. But I don't know about you, Gabe, but my November through December gets real busy. And
sure.
asking me to remember just one day and to do something on that one day is really hard that time of year. So we actually open up giving on November 1st. So any
Hmm.
donations made via coloradogives.org in support of whatever nonprofit you want to support at that time. So any donations from November 1st through December 9th count towards Colorado Gives Day. And the reason you might want to give during that giving period is because you get to feel part of what I think of as the ultimate feel-good event. You are part of the statewide movement of generosity. You get to be part of 100,000 people who are supporting the nonprofits that keep our communities going. Another reason is I like to have my dollar go a little bit further. And when you
Hmm.
give on Colorado Gives Day in that giving period, November 1st or December 9th, your donation gets a boost from the incentive fund. So
Oh,
First
wow.
Bank, Colorado Gives Foundation, we seed an incentive fund with $1 million. And so every donation gets a little boost. So if your favorite nonprofit gets 10% of everything donated on Colorado Gives Day, they're going to get 10% of the incentive fund. So your dollar goes further. We also have on December 9th a lot of prizes. We have power hours where we have small,
Hmm.
medium, and large nonprofits competing to raise the most money during that hour. And if they succeed in first place, second place, or third place, they'll also get a prize. So there's lots of prizes that put more money into the bank accounts of nonprofits so they can continue to fulfill their mission.
That's awesome. And I love your answer. It's every day is important for nonprofits, right? So it's not just one
Mhm.
day that's more impactful, but your reasoning makes a lot of sense. And this might be a little bit of a softball question for you, but I'd imagine, is there any size donation that might be too small?
No. Any size donation matters.
I
On the
figured that,
on
but
our website, we start at $5.
fair
So you
enough.
can start at $5 and you can go up to $100,000. If you get to $100,000, give us a call. We'll wire that money versus having you go through our website. But yes, we
Fair
can
enough.
take donations from $5 to $100,000 via the website.
Now, with retirees that might be doing some sort of estate planning or legacy planning, as you just said, right? As your donation gets to be a certain amount, call you guys, make special arrangements. But what are other ways that individuals doing legacy planning and estate planning can incorporate charitable giving into their overall financial plans and estate plans?
Yeah, I think sometimes when you say estate planning and legacy planning, it sounds so fancy and so difficult and it's a big deal. It really is pretty easy. I like to say if you can write a name onto your IRA and say this is the beneficiary, you can do planned giving. So
Okay.
the easiest way, and you can do it while you're alive. We hear from a lot of retirees that once they create a gift in their will for a nonprofit, they also want to give more when they're alive because it feels really good to donate. And so I'll start with
Absolutely.
a couple of things. A lot of retirees have an IRA. They may not need to take all of they have a required minimum distribution at a certain age, but they
Sure.
may not need to take all of that money and they're taxed on that money when they take it. So for those retirees, you can do something called a qualified charitable distribution. Everyone calls it a QCD. And so a QCD allows you to reduce the amount of income you're taxed on that you take from your IRA. And you can give that qualified charitable distribution to one or several nonprofits. And you can do that on coloradogives.org. We make it incredibly easy to do that. So you can go on to coloradogives.org. I always like to say, if you can shop online, you can donate online. So you go to
I love it.
coloradogives.org, you search for the nonprofits you want to support, you decide how much you want to give to each nonprofit, you put them into your shopping cart, then you check out. And as you check out, it'll say, how do you want to pay? And there's a drop down menu, and you choose, it'll say DAF, DAF, or IRA. You choose that, and then you just fill out the information. We essentially send an invoice to whoever holds your IRA to send us one check. We take that check and then we distribute it to the nonprofits that you had in your cart. And so the financial advisors love this because they don't have to write checks to all those
Sure.
nonprofits.
Yeah.
And when it comes tax time, you have one receipt and it's right there on coloradogives.org. You can just log in, pull your receipt, and you've got it. And you get credit when you go to see your CPA for making that qualified charitable distribution. So that's one thing you could do. And if that is you and you have an IRA, you can also leave that IRA to a nonprofit. That's a really simple way to do some planned giving or some legacy giving. The other thing you can do when you're alive or through your will is you can leave that IRA to a donor advised fund, or you can leave stock. Maybe you have some appreciated stock. You can put that stock into the donor advised fund when you die, or even when you're alive. And a donor advised fund, I think of it as like a mini private foundation. So you open up the donor advised fund. When it's opened, you get the full tax deduction allowable by law. And then we have an advisor on the fund. So if you're deceased, you could have a family member be the advisor on the fund. If you're alive, you can be the advisor on the fund. And then you just make grants from that donor advised fund to the nonprofits that you want to support. And with a donor advised fund, you can give to nonprofits throughout the country. It isn't limited to Colorado. And then there's other fancy ways you can leave legacy gifts. And for any of these, I always encourage people to talk to their tax advisor. But if you want to know more about a donor advised fund or how to use a QCD, please feel free to reach out to Colorado Gives Foundation. We'd love to talk to you about how we might help you do that.
Yeah, those are awesome tips. I think the QCD and the donor advised funds, they're incredible ways to be able to give. And what I find with working with clients over the years, older clients in particular, is the fear of giving away money that they might need in the future,
Yes.
right? The idea of, well,
Yep.
I'd like to give, but what happens if I need that from a medical event or an emergency in the future? So it sounds like there are tools and instruments to be able to do this in ways to protect them and still achieve their legacy goals at the same time.
Yep. And the beauty of some of these is you can put them into your will, but they're all revocable. So if your circumstances change, you can change the beneficiary on your IRA. You
Sure.
can change where you want stocks or where you want property, real estate to go. It could go to a family member. You could liquidate it and actually not put it into the donor advised fund should circumstances changes. So that's the beauty of many of these opportunities to give, to leave a legacy.
Yeah, and by the way, one of the things you mentioned as well on Colorado Gives Day is the consolidated invoice. I
Yes.
absolutely love that. I've
Oh,
personally been
good,
doing it for several
good.
years. I do give a little bit throughout the year, but I do enjoy the ease of being able to give and the ease of being able to track the donations. Because sometimes, I give $5 or $25 here or there, and sometimes you lose track of it. And
Yep,
so the
absolutely.
convenience of having that all in one place, and I will say there's an overwhelming number of options I have found as well. As a veteran, I like to give to other veteran organizations. And one day I searched for veteran organizations on Colorado Gives Day, and I think I saw, I don't know how many, you
Yeah,
you
there,
might know, but it felt like there were a couple dozen veteran organizations. It was like, well, now I don't know who to give to. But all that to say, it's a great platform. I give you guys a lot of credit for building out what you've done and creating the partnerships that you've done. It really is fantastic.
Well,
So
thank you. And we always like to say that Colorado Gives Day is powered by the nonprofits. They are the engine behind an incredibly successful day, and it's the donors who show up every single year in support of the nonprofits that really make it successful. So we're just honored to get to be a part of it. And thank
yeah,
you for your service. Really appreciate
absolutely.
that.
My pleasure. Well, with that, what advice would you give someone who wants to start giving but isn't really sure where to begin?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would start asking myself, what who has helped me in my life? When has someone helped me and what did they help me do? And is there an organization that does something similar?
Hmm.
So I think if we've received help, it's often a really natural way to give and sort of pay it forward. So if I got help in school and it was a teacher, well, is there a nonprofit out there that is also helping students? Maybe it's scholarships, maybe it's teacher training. And so you can give to those nonprofits aligned with that. Another thing I like to do is say, what makes me mad? When I look
Hmm.
out in the world, like what makes me mad? And do I think this just absolutely shouldn't be happening right now? And then I sort of channel that energy to find nonprofits who may be working on that issue. So it makes me really sad that kids are going to school hungry. I don't like that. So I may find a food bank in my community. And the beauty of coloradogives.org is you can put in food banks and then your zip code to find one right in your backyard if you want to give really local. So those are two ways I might start. I might also ask some friends. What do you give to? What do you care about? And if you're really stuck, give us a call. We love talking to people about giving and we can help you think through what is it you care about and how might you structure your giving to align with your values and the change or the sustenance you want to see continue in the world.
I love that. Yeah, give you a call. I think that's great, great advice. And, you know, I grew up in a time where you didn't talk about money in at
Yeah.
home, right? You talked about giving, you talked about charitable organizations, nonprofits, and things like that, giving to your church or your synagogue or whatever was, you know, you were a part of your community, but you didn't talk about in dollars per se, right? And that's okay. But the idea of talking with friends, talking to your community about and learning about what opportunities are available, what organizations are in need. So I love that. Those are some great ideas. And the other one that you mentioned of what makes you mad, I think that's very
Yeah.
interesting perspective to think about. If you are driving home or walking somewhere or riding your bike, what makes you mad? And are there organizations that are doing something to disrupt that or change that? So wonderful
Yep.
advice. So,
Thank
Kelly,
you.
as we wrap up here today, November 1st is, it sounds like, when the door opens to start
That's
really
right.
giving openly, and things wrap up on December 9th this year. And by the way, is December 9th the same day every Colorado Gives Day, or is it changed based on the day of the week? Is
It's the second Tuesday
second Tuesday,
of every
Giving Tuesday.
December. Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
Giving Tuesday, second Tuesday of every December this year, 2025, it happens to be on December 9th. You do not have to wait, it sounds like, but
You do
there's
not.
there's definitely a great feeling and a sense of community when everyone comes together. I have felt that myself on December 9th, where everybody does come together. So if people, listeners, people watching us want to learn more, get involved, or donate, obviously, we've got coloradogives.org. I'll say that again,
Correct.
coloradogives.org. But how else can people learn more, get involved? What's the best way to get in touch with you and or your organization?
Yeah. So I think if you would like to get in touch with me or our organization, we have an inbox. It's hello@ coloradogivesfoundation.org. And I promise you, we monitor it daily and we respond daily. So you can give us a shout out on hello@coloradogivesfoundation.org and we'll respond to you.
Awesome. And is there a phone number, a general number that people can call
There
if they want
is.
to
Thank
speak with
you.
somebody?
Yep. 720 898-5900.
Awesome. I'll put that in the notes as well for people. But I just want to also mention that anybody can give on Colorado Gives Day. Anybody can give to Colorado Gives Foundation. You do not have to live in Colorado. Um,
Correct.
Yes, so just want to point that out and clarify, but it's a great way to give back to the community. Kelly, this has been super insightful. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate what you are doing for Jeffco and for the entire state of Colorado. It extremely impactful, and we just appreciate again everything you do and what Colorado Gives Foundation does. So thank you once again.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely my pleasure. Appreciate the time. And don't forget, Colorado Gives Day, December 9th.
We will not forget. We'll make sure we share it December 9th. Thanks again, Kelly, and we'll look forward to celebrating